Hi, everybody. So today, on today's podcast, I have my husband.
Don't mind me, I'm just super awkward.
So he is quite the awkward turtle, but not as awkward as I was whenever I first met him. But we'll get into that, and I'm sure that Daniel would love to tell you guys that story. We do have our newborn over here that is currently getting ready to be about a month old. He's in his rocker right now. So at any point, if he decides to rust around, do his thing, then one of us will get up and get him. So at some point, he'll be most likely in a video at some point. I do have a list of questions. So, and it's because these questions never made it to trial, because you never got your opportunity to be on the stand to testify against Malachi's mom and to defend me. So we're going to kind of get into that. And I'm sure that, yes. So I'm sure, Okay, so the first question, these were coming from Amanda Sullivan, which was in our previous episodes. So we're going to get on with that. Anyways, questions for witnesses for Daniel. Okay. What is your relationship with Heavenlyleann? What is your relationship with me?
Oh, you mean now that we've actually been married for about
No, so we've been married for a year. That was April 24th. Yes. This past year was our 1 year, but we've been married for an entire year. Okay.
Yes, so we've actually been together for about 3 years.
Yeah, we've been together for about 3 years. So, okay, the next question was, when did you meet Heavenlyleann? Do you want to tell how we actually met?
Well, we met on a dating app.
Yeah, surprisingly, we met on a dating app.
It was actually really funny because both of us were just this person's never going to talk to me in a million years.
That was actually pretty genuine. So, really honestly, whenever I first saw him, what was the name of the dating app that we met on?
It wasn't it Tammy or Tommy or
yeah, it was Tommy, Tammy. Anyways, one of those. So,
TAIMI.
Not sponsored. Anyway, so basically, we were. I was just kind of scrolling through people, I guess, and everything. Just I don't know. I wasn't really looking for anything at that point because I was in the middle of my court case, and this person came across. And I was just there is no way that this person would ever like me or talk to me. So I hearted this person. And then you were on the other side of the phone and you saw me and you did the exact same thing. And then we started talking. So it was genuinely, we both were thinking that we wouldn't.
It was actually pretty funny because we even had a whole entire conversation about tea.
About wait, what?
Tea.
yeah, we did. We had a whole conversation about teas and stuff. And I remember at some point we exchanged phone numbers. But it was also kind of we didn't really fully talk about that situation until way, way later on whenever you told me
well, that was because you were going through your court case. Yep. And I didn't really know that much. And at the same time, I was going through my own court case.
Yeah, you were going through a full-on divorce with a minor child, while I was going through a custody battle without a divorce because Malachi's mom and me were not legally married.
Well, then you
at
make
that
a
time.
smart decision.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know, right? But anyways, so. And then, hilarious story. I'll tell them about the whole, the soda situation at work and everything. Okay, so because I, met Daniel through an app and not in person, I had no idea that Daniel was trans, which is, for you, is female to male.
Yep.
So, for people, yeah, it's the opposite of basically, yeah. So if for those that are asking questions oh, well, did you guys have a surrogate? Did you guys adopt? No, Daniel conceived and carried, so our child is biologically ours. So to settle that situation, because I know that there's going to be a lot of people that are going to ask. So biologically, Archer is our child, both of ours.
Yeah, and he looks like both of us, just
Yeah.
smashed together.
But then the crazy part was that I had no idea that you were trans when we first met, especially online. And I remember I was working, I was a regional manager for Walmart, and I was sitting in the break room with a bunch of my associates, and we were all talking. It was, of course, it's a bunch of girls. So we all, kiki and talk and blah, 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 blah. And I was telling them about how I was talking to this person. I was showing them pictures of him because he had like a gorgeous 6-pack that I was like melting over.
This was back when I actually went to the gym and everything.
Yes, and everything. And he had this Smurf-like blue hair that I was just like, he's blueberry man with abs. So anyways, so I was thinking to myself, like, anime guy, basically, essentially. Anyways, we're not going to talk about my personal life. So, anyways, so
yes, let's talk about your personal life.
That's a whole different subject of videos, okay? Anyways, so I remember we were talking, me and the girls, we were talking and stuff, and I was showing pictures of you, and the girls were just like, you know what? If he's not communicating with, because I was flirting with you and I was trying to engage in conversation.
Later on, you find out that, oh, hey, because I was going through my own court case, I didn't want to like throw a bunch of baggage at somebody.
But little did you know that I could handle that situation. But
no, because it like scared everybody else off. So I was just like, I'm just
so
gonna keep
and then like I kind of stopped talking to you, and it was like once every week, maybe twice every week, you would send me like a random text message, and I would just not respond and everything. And the girls were just like, just go with it, you'll be fine, blah, 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 blah. And I remember one day we were having a conversation, and you had mentioned to me that you were trans, and little did you know that I was sitting at work in the cafeteria, and I was taking a sip of my drink, and as I'm reading it, my soda literally goes through my nose, and the girls that were at the table were asking me, is everything okay? Blah, blah, blah. I had no idea that Daniel was trans. I had no idea that you were trans. And it like blew me away, because typically, being the person that I am, I know trans men and I know trans women. So usually I can kind of pick up on these things, and I was not picking up on it at all. So I had no fucking clue.
This is the whole entire thing about stereotypes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But then, like in your photo, you're completely topless. So like I couldn't really see that you had top surgery. Like the scar from the photo was very minimal. So but I also wasn't inherently looking for those things either. So it just kind of wasn't, it didn't cross my mind.
You were just over there drooling over like cheese grater abs.
Yeah. And then, besides that, so I told you, because being somebody that had quit transitioning because of my legal case, which you're aware of that situation, as well as you guys are now aware of it. If you've watched the other podcast, you would know the reason why I don't look the way that I used to in long past videos. But anyways, so after I had found out that you were trans, I then told you, well, actually, this is who I am, because I was still trying to figure out who I was, like if I was trans, if I wasn't, and if I wanted to continue or not.
Like when I was talking to you, you're just like, you don't know who I am?
Well, and that was another thing, is like I've said this for years, is that because of who I am online, being a entertainer in person in the community, plus being, I wouldn't say like a mediocre online influencer, but like starting out still pretty much like getting your feet wet, still learning how like things navigating the world and stuff like that, but also keeping yourself humble in the sense that like you remember where you started, and not allowing like online social media influence from people that adore you and follow you to get to you. But my biggest pet peeve was like, I don't ever want to date somebody that knows who I am online, because
little do you know, I don't keep up with celebrities.
Yeah, you don't keep up with celebrities. You don't keep up with any people that are like, blah, blah, blah. And so for me, my biggest pet peeve was like, I didn't want to date anybody that knew who I was from online, because at that point, I didn't want to feel like somebody's basically Birkin bag, like, oh, look who I bagged, like this person from online that I've been following and blah, blah, blah. Because at that point, it's weird for me because at that point, that person or like you would have been watching me online for X amount of months, 2 years,
Nah, it wasn't
whatever.
until like you told me, and like all of a sudden, like I'm looking at your videos, I'm just like, ah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then finally you kind of realized what was kind of going on. So then after that, we start flying out to each other's places. You lived in Visalia, California after
Yeah,
you got
no. And then the
divorced.
first time you came
Yeah.
and like met me, you literally were like on my floor, hugging onto your backpack for dear life, and it was
So
like,
how this situation ended up happening was like I was going through, obviously, like if you watch the previous episodes, I had went through a serious amounts of emotions and ups and downs and trials and a bunch of other stuff. And me and Daniel started talking and stuff, and because my trust value with people was very, very low, I had told him like I really just don't want to be here right now. I need to get away.
it was more like the whole entire situation that was happening. Like you called me freaking out because of something that was going on, and then you had asked me if it would be okay if you came home to California, and I was just like, sure, I have my own place.
And then I remember you were like, oh yeah, totally, and I was just like, well, okay, under one condition, because my trust value with people is very, very low because of everything that's happened to me at this point. I was like, I would feel better if you bought the plane tickets, because then you would be out the money if you abandoned me at the airport.
And that was the thing. I'm just like, why would I abandon you at an airport?
And then I didn't realize this until later on that like I basically had turned myself into a high class hooker because I was all like, he basically is like paying for me to come out there. Don't mind my feet in the video and everything. I'm not selling feet pics. It's just the angle of the camera. Anyways, so and then started going out there, hanging out with you and stuff. And then eventually,
it was also like the first time you came out, that was when you had like your dental surgery done.
Yes.
And you were like super like nervous and everything.
I had just went through dental surgery, which, later on in the video, I'll kind of fill you guys in on like all of that and everything that kind of happened. Because it's very surreal. It's a thing that does happen.
Yeah, no. And when I came and picked you up from like the airport, you were talking like a mile a minute.
Yeah, well, that's something that I do whenever I'm extremely nervous. Is I talk extremely fast, and I say a lot of words.
Yeah, and then on my way home from like the airport over to like my apartment, like you.
Yeah, no, I passed out because I was extremely tired. Plus, too, there's like a 2-hour difference between Oklahoma and California, so I was out of it because I think my plane.
Like, don't mind me and my sweaty hands and everything.
Yeah, well, plus, too, I left Oklahoma with it being like almost 59 degrees here, and by the time I got to California, it was like 75, almost 80, and I was in a leather jacket. So
yeah, and you didn't take your leather jacket. You didn't take your jacket off.
No, because I was a nervous wreck, and I remember because my plane left early in the morning. But anyways, so we started doing that, and then at some point during Christmas, you flew out from California, and you came to Oklahoma, and you met Malachi for the first time. So explain what was your like overall first like what was your first, because like there was stuff that happened prior to you flying into town, because Malachi's mom was trying to figure out every single way possible to get out of.
It wasn't just that. It wasn't just like that. It was also because of me having to deal with like my own ex and everything at that point.
Right. Well, but do you remember how like the sleeping arrangement was? Is like somebody had to sleep on an airbag because there wasn't, because at my grandparents' house at that time, because this was before like we had our house.
No, so she wanted you to basically like give up your room and everything just for her and Malachi, and wanted both of us to be sleeping on the air mattress out in the living room.
Well, and at that time, it was just like, every single time she had been there to visit.
You were giving up your bed.
Yeah, I was giving up my bed and stuff. But there was also something else major that had transpired that I caught on camera that I cannot talk about. Is the reason why I did not want her in my bed anymore. Which is why I told her she was going to have to sleep in the living room, which, by the way, is like a super thick air mattress. So it's not like she's on the floor. So she was complaining about that. She also had an issue with you at one point because of how, for 18 months when she had him, you remember she had asked me if I wanted to have more children with her after I finally, and she didn't realize I was in a relationship with you at this point. And we were in the car and we were driving 2 hours back to Tulsa, and it was just me, her, and Malachi. And she had asked me, oh, at some point I would like to have more children. Would you consider having more children with me? And I flat out was like, are you insane? Like,
well,
no.
That was also because she was saying that she didn't want like Malachi to have half siblings.
Yeah, she had specifically stated that she wanted to have more children, but she didn't want Malachi to have half siblings. And I literally was just like, what on earth? And we all thought that was crazy. And then later on I told her, I was like, no, I'm currently dating somebody. I'm in a relationship. And she was like, well, she was extremely upset by that. I knew she was upset by that because she got extremely more like quiet, more possessive over Malachi, more controlling. She wanted to know more information about you that was none of her business.
Well, and I think like she was like trying to say like she needed to have like a whole entire background thing done on me.
Yeah, no, she had said, she had made the comment about wanting a background check on you, and it was more or less like control. Like she wanted control over it.
Just like I have my own child.
Yeah, well, that's the thing too, is that, remember I told her, I was like, no, Daniel, he has his like CDL, like he drives for the city, which means you can't have a criminal background. He's already had a background check. And secondly, it also showed that she didn't have any trust in me as far as like who I would allow around our child. And because I'm sitting here going like, I wouldn't, because you obviously have.
Well, from like later on, like what we had found out was basically she wasn't letting anybody actually have a relationship with them.
Yeah, well, that was way later on, and that was with her own family, but also too, yeah, because her sister had stated that it was difficult for her and her mom, as well as their stepfather, to have a relationship with Malachi because of Janie being so possessive over him. But also too, when it came down to it, it was like she saw that like I was completely finished with her. I was done. I wanted nothing, no more. I was over it. And she didn't like the fact that I had moved on, that I was in a different relationship, and then I was talking to somebody else, that I was serious about it.
Well, it's not only, it wasn't just that. It was also at that point, because you're in a relationship with somebody else, your child's going to have to be around somebody else as well.
Well, but also too, do you remember after you finally got to meet him, like there's videos of you and me throwing a ball back and forth with Malachi and playing with him and stuff. No. And then after that visit, she accused you of.
Yeah, no, from what I was told, it's like she tried saying that I had hit a 2-year-old at that point. He was 2. And it's just like throughout the whole entire visit, what it was like he was there and he was wanting to like play with toys and stuff like that. And like I was playing with like the toys, with the blocks and everything with him.
Yep.
And throwing the ball and stuff. And like even I had like recorded the whole entire like playing thing, because that was one thing that meant a lot to you, was actually getting to have like videos and pictures with your child. So that was one thing that I also was able to do for you at the time when it came to like first meeting me. And throughout the whole entire like visit, what she was doing was like she was on her phone, or she kept on going outside to go smoke on her vape thing.
Yeah, well, and that was something too, is like, in the photos, there's pictures of Malachi and you on the floor playing with toys, and she was sitting there, and she was on her phone the whole entire time, just basically dissociating from the whole situation, wanted nothing to do with it. And then me and my entire family noticed her going in and out the front door, and she was going outside to go smoke all the time, because at that point she just felt like she had no reason to be there, because again, she was thinking that like she was just going to try to whittle her way back into my life, and then she could figure out a way to again get rid of me again, or try to take off again. And because she saw that I had no interest in trying to further a relationship with her, the way I wanted to look at it is, because we were trying to offer joint custody at one point, from some of the parenting classes that I had done, which are actually really good classes. Some of them I willfully took, some of them I was court ordered to take, which is fine. Um, and I was willfully willing to do all of it. However, in one of them, it was, with your co-parent, look at it as this is a business exchange. And I wasn't looking at it as like, this is the other parent, this isn't a friend, this isn't an ex, this is a business partner. And we're looking at the health and development of this child as, how can we further the education and well-being of this child? And she didn't want to look at it that way. She wanted to figure out a way to get back with me so it would prolong the court case and it would stop the court case. But that's not what ended up happening. So she saw you as a threat, which is why she accused you of hitting him, because she figured that that would hinder me, or that would get rid of you.
No, it was more like also like she just didn't want her child having fun or having any type of relationship with somebody outside of like what was going on.
Well, because Malachi was extremely helicopter parented. So in that situation,
it's like, oh, you're comforting, you're playing with my kid. How dare you?
Well, I mean, there's certain things that we witnessed, like on one of the video chats with Malachi and his mom, is his mom and her sister and his cousin were all having pizza on video chat. And Malachi's mom had said to him,
well, they didn't have pizza on it. What it was they were saying like all the stuff that they were doing without him being there.
But that's what I'm getting at, is like, regardless if the pizza was like in the video or not, she had explicitly said to him, oh, well, we're having pizza without you. And those words to a 2, almost 3-year-old is extremely hurtful, because his memory and the things that he loves to do with his mom, she's now flaunting it in front of him, which makes him want to dislike being at my house or around us. And when he got extremely upset, he had thrown the phone down, and then you went to comfort him, and she hung up the phone because she did not like seeing that you were comforting him.
Yeah, because at that point he was like really upset and he wanted to be hugged or held. So that was what I was doing. And it was like, at one point, just like the video call just automatically had stopped.
Yep.
And it was like her seeing like her kid being comforted and soothed by somebody else.
Yep. So, okay. So you were also there for some of the documented child abuse as well.
Yeah.
That we both saw, the scratches, the bruises, the black eyes, so you remember the water incident, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you describe, not in great detail, but can you describe what happened the day that Malachi went to take a bath at my house, and what happened?
He was really upset about having to take a bath, and he didn't want to take a bath. And then as soon as he was inside the water, like he was basically crying his eyes out, and at one point he himself from being inside the water.
Which, keep this in mind, any parent out there knows a child will not urinate themselves spontaneously unless it is a reaction of fear
it was more like after that we were like asking like certain questions, just like figure out what was going on, why all of a sudden out of nowhere he's so afraid of water.
Well,
Because you had pictures of him being at a pool.
Yep.
And he was perfectly fine and everything, and then to go from like that to
well,
suddenly extremely afraid of being inside
and
water.
the thing is too is like we did ask him, and this was something that was brought up in court to the judge, and this is one of the reasons why I ended up with temporary sole custody was because remember we asked him.
Yeah, and it was also on like recording.
Yeah, but we had asked him.
Yeah.
We were like, you know, and keep in mind, no 2 almost 3-year-old knows or should knows or comprehends what it means to have their head put underwater. So when I asked him, you know, why are you afraid of water? Did something happen? And he says no, and I say, well, did somebody do something to you underwater? And he's like, yes. So that tells me, my attorney, which is Amanda, that tells you and everybody else that like somebody has done something
well,
to him.
It was also later on that found out that she did something that she wasn't supposed to without like asking
yeah,
you.
or without my consent. Yeah.
And it was the whole religious thing that she did without actually telling you or anybody else around you about it.
Okay, so here's another good one. So after temporary sole custody, can you describe what some of the drop off and pickups would be like between Malachi, his mom, and his father? Like particularly that one.
That was kind of like Russian roulette on how I went.
Yeah,
which is like either it was like later on where everything went like perfectly fine and okay, or he would have straight up meltdown, blowout, brawl out when it came to like pickup, like literally having him sitting there screaming, "You're taking me away from my mom. I don't want to go. I don't want to go." And it's just like, what are you talking about? Like, what 2-year-old would even like say that from just like being told, "Hey, you're going to go spend like a little bit of time over at their place, but you're going to come right back."
Well, and that's the thing though too, is that like that's another reason why we know that there's parental alienation, and because a 2 almost 3-year-old does not just spontaneously, unless they've been told or made to believe, that something is happening. Because in that incident, it was just like, I don't know what to do at this point.
The thing is like it didn't start until like after you guys actually like had like the visitations finally set up, and all of a sudden it was just like right after court. It was the temporary, you got the temporary custody thing.
Yeah, temporary sole custody.
Yeah. And it was right after that, because we'd never heard any of that before. It was right after that case when she was supposed to like come and go to the drop off area, drop off pickup. All of a sudden it was him just having a hellacious fit, crying, accusing you of taking him away from his mom and everything, when it wasn't like that at all before.
No, because you remember the day that I got temporary sole custody, we went and picked him up that day too, right after court. And it was perfectly normal. I mean, like I have a picture of him in the car seat smiling at Jillian, like there's no big deal, like it's carefree. I'm just gonna go.
It was the pickup right after the court case that all of a sudden he completely did like a whole 180 on the whole entire thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was, yeah, no, because it was like everything was fine. He was like, "Oh, I'm just gonna go to Dad's house," blah blah blah. And then it was later on that suddenly he made like the 360, as you were saying, because I remember that night.
Yeah, the complete like 180.
So we went down there to go pick him up, and he was perfectly fine until he got to the car, and it got so bad that I had to wrestle him into the seat. And keep in mind, like his mom was there for this, And she was no encouragement at all. I mean, like, she could have been like, honey, it's okay. You're going to, you'll be back. You're just going to go to dad's house.
No,
like,
that one happened, it was because he was with her for an extended amount of time.
Yeah.
And then when you finally were able to actually have a visitation with him, then that's when that one actually happened.
Well, I was talking about the one from like Shroud, where we were at the police station in Shroud.
Yeah, no, that was the one time when she had him for an extra week.
Because remember, she had him for an extra week because your mom saying. Your mom had passed away, and we had to go down to Albuquerque.
No, that's what I'm saying. Is like it was when she had the extended visits that all of a sudden we had these meltdown blowouts.
Yep. Well, because like we had just went down to Albuquerque because your mother had just passed away, so we had came back, and I had graciously, I instead of saying, hey, I'm going to take Malachi with us for a week to Albuquerque, I agreed to allow him to stay with her for an extra week. To simply say to the court, like, hey, I want him to have an ongoing relationship.
Even when
with his mom.
we were there, like before we left, you told her like, hey, this is the day that I'm going to do a video call with him. That way I can have like my time.
Yes, and then none of those video calls happened because I documented everything. She literally was like hanging up the phone on me. She would reject the calls. She wouldn't respond to my text messages.
And then it was like the next day that she actually gave the excuse of like, oh, well, my phone wasn't working.
Oh, no, my phone died, or I lost my phone. Those were common excuses that she gave a lot. But then I remember when we got back from Albuquerque and we came to pick him up, I had to wrestle him in the car seat. And at this point, he was forward facing. I had to take his car seat, which is a 360 degrees spin seat, and I had to spin him around back facing, take his shoes off, take all of his toys from him because he was going to throw them at me while I was driving. And then while we were driving, he is like screaming like banshee in the car. You're taking me from my mom. I hate you. I hate you. I want to go home. And you're taking me from my mom, over and over and over again. I mean, like banshee screaming. Okay. And then finally
tantrums like literally usually last at the most like probably like about like 10 minutes.
Yeah, this was an hour and a half drive.
Yeah, it was the whole entire way there that he was doing that.
Yep.
And even at one point you had to like pull over because he had figured out how to get his arms free from his seat.
Out of a 4-point harness,
it's a
5-point harness, he had managed to squeeze the belt thing that comes together here, the latch, squeeze it down, and managed to get his arms out. So the only thing that was holding him down was from the crotch up and everything from the actual click in, like the belt. And so I was just like, are you joking me right now? Like, wow, like this is crazy. And then I think that was like the last ever major blowout that we had, because at that point I think I remember, what was it, we did something that weekend. I don't remember, we did something fun that weekend, and it changed his perspective on the situation. Okay, so we're at 35 minutes, so we're going to pause for a second, and then we're going to come back in a later episode, because we got just talking, and there's more stuff that we need to talk about. So anyways, I love you guys. Obviously, I'm sure that Daniel loves you guys too.
Hi, strangers.
Anyways, my personal awkward turtle.
I don't even want to hear it.
Oh, I know. I know.
I'm not the one who is just like on my floors with their bag.
Hugging their backpack for dear life. And well, to be fair, the first time I saw you, I was like, he's like a god.
Yeah, that's why you were talking a mile a minute.
Yeah. Okay, anyways, I love you guys. I will see you guys in the next video, and it'll most likely be me and Daniel, and then there will be more later on in the future. Okay. Bye. Bye.